involved in a wreck, call me for a miniature value report. Call 727-541-1741. You may be owed some money for the lost value of your repaired vehicle. And visit us at GulfstreamMotorsports.com.
Tune in to the Shrink and Wrap Show here on Tan Talk Radio. Our stories and our topics will include, but are not limited to, everyday issues. We're here for you, for our listeners. We want to know what's important to you. So again, don't miss us on Tan Talk Radio. Tune in again, Shrink and Wrap Show. We'll see you then.
That's the Shrink and Wrap Show every Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Hi, it's me, but I'm not Patsy. I'm Bria, filling in at Joy on Paper Radio, where you, the listener, gets to learn all about the story behind the book. We are here with a guest who hardly needs introduction, but I will just give you briefly this person that you already know. He's very famous. You have seen him on Longmire. You've seen him on Stand and Deliver, a Golden Globe nominated role. You've seen him on La Bamba, Courage Under Fire. The list goes on. But without further ado, I would like to welcome to the show Lou Diamond Phillips. Lou, welcome to Joy on Paper.
Thank you so much, Bria. Thanks so much for having me.
I am absolutely thrilled and delighted. I'm in the studio where there is a camera, and I'm holding up your book right now for the listeners who may be watching on the YouTube channel. Lou's book, The Tinderbox, Soldier of Indira. And this sci-fi novel is absolutely incredible. I loved your book so much, and I want to talk to you about this book. And can we just start a little bit behind the journey? What even inspired you to write a novel after your incredible career? Not after, you're still in the middle of your incredible career.
I'm still rolling.
During your incredible career as a legendary actor, you took up the pen and decided to write a science fiction novel. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey? Were you writing as a young kid, or did it kind of happen on your journey in the midst of acting?
I back up, and it's funny because my dad, George, who lives down in Texas and grew up in China, he's a Navy guy. I was a middle-class kid. And around the age of 12, he said, well, son, what do you think you want to do for a living? And I told him I wanted to be a writer. And
oh, my
he said,
goodness.
Well, you might want to, he said, you might want to pick something, where you can make more money. And so I came back a year later and said, I'm going to be an actor. And he said, that's not what I had in mind. But I wanted to be a writer as long as I wanted to be an actor. I was an English minor and a drama major at the University of Texas at Arlington. And, I used to write a lot of narrative things, but I also wrote stage plays. And then when I got to Hollywood, I started writing screenplays and drifted in that direction. And didn't write narrative for a very, very long time.
Okay.
And then when my wife, my wife Yvonne, who, by the way, that beautiful cover, that's her illustration.
Oh, I want to talk about that, but go on with this part of the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk about the beautiful illustrations your wife has done.
And so, she's done 30 of them in the book, but her work was literally the genesis of that book.
Oh, my goodness. That's incredible.
Yeah. When we first got together and started dating, she was reading some of my early narrative work. And I was looking at a lot of her artwork, which was just beautiful. And she used to draw in the anime and manga style. It was cool.
Yes,
she would.
I can actually, as you say that, looking right here in the book that I have in front of me, I can see that inspiration tied into some of the way she does the art.
Exactly. But inspired by Hans Christian. And since it automatically reminded me of the Kurosawa influence on Star Wars. And I said to Yvonne, I said, this is a movie. And she said, well, go ahead and write it. So I did.
I'm so glad she suggested that, because we've got this great book. And so you really have been writing from a young age. You've had this passion for writing and for even screenplays, all different types of writing. So that is incredible. And like you said, going into a narrative that you've done here. So this journey and your wife kind of inspiring you from her art. Let's touch briefly. So there are 30 illustrations that she has done, and I'm just going to hold up the book. I know you can't see what I'm looking at, but you know what they look like. There are these incredible illustrations in the book that I just thought it just so richly draws the reader in even more. And in many ways, this is a young adult. That was your target audience, correct? Young adult?
Well, and that's a funny thing. I didn't set out to write a YA novel.
Mm-hmm.
When I thought about it, and as I said, I did it as a screenplay first, finished it, and thought, oh my gosh, nobody's going to give me this much money to direct this movie.
Uh-huh.
And it was my manager who said, well, write the novel. And so that was a 10-year process. Because my day job kept getting in the way.
Sure, as happens with a lot of writers.
Yes,
so yes, understandable.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you a little bit about your process as a writer when you go to sit and work on your book? And you may have heard these terms before. The plotter is the person who outlines a lot before they even start those first narrative, sentences. The pantser flies by the seat of their pants. The story kind of comes in a discovery type way. Do you fit in either of those two categories?
I am much more a plotter, and that where you have definite structure and there's a dramatic arc and all of that. The thing about the Tinderbox, the first book, was that the plot was already there in place based on the Hans Christian Andersen short story.
Right, and do you know? I was an English major. I have done a lot of reading in my day. I was not familiar until I picked up your book. I was not familiar with that fairy tale, and talking to other people, I don't know how popular that fairy tale is, but I love that you drew from one that you knew, and you had this, draw to tell.
That was Yvonne.
Oh, that was
Yvonne.
Yvonne.
It was 100% Yvonne.
Okay.
She was going to do the graphic novel based on it, and she chose it specifically because it was a more obscure HCA than say The Little Mermaid or something.
Sure.
And so the funny thing is that when I got around to actually writing the book, I set it in space. I did not set out to write a YA novel. I did not set out to write a science fiction, but I thought,
love it. I love it.
It fell into place only because I thought if we do make the movie, science fiction is still big. Game of Thrones hadn't happened yet. Okay. But I quite often refer to the novel as a sci-fi fantasy.
Yes.
Because it
very appropriate.
It retains, kings and queens and princesses and whatnot. And you see there are very literal lifts from the Hans Christian Andersen, the dogs, the tree, the witch, but I extrapolate them in what I hope is a very clever way that serves my narrative as opposed to and setting as opposed to Hans's.
Absolutely. As a reader and a fan of your book, I thought you phenomenally tied those things together. I ended up finding the Tinderbox original fairy tale to read after I finished your book. And I thought, what clever ways to tie in the original to what you've done here and taking this almost Shakespearean. I mean, you've got the star-crossed lovers tied in there as well.
That is exactly right. And that was a huge touchstone. Romeo and Juliet. It's all there.
Exactly. And and all these elements that you managed to tie in. Sometimes I think as a writer myself, I can bite off more than I mean to chew. And so the way that you've incorporated so many beautiful themes, universal themes of, you've got this, it's set in a different galaxy, but you've got these two warring races that are separated by a literal schism in space, which I don't want to give away too much of the book, because I want the people listening who haven't had the pleasure to go ahead and get this book and read it. But there are these wonderful imagery that you could tie into things going on in our present day, but it's set in a galaxy far, far away. You've got the kind of undercover prince who is wandering around in the desert at the very beginning of the book, who is kind of a little bit unsure about himself, and then he goes on this wonderful journey, has this wonderful arc, and then, like you said, you tie in the dogs and the tree, and you do it so beautifully with the science fiction backdrop. I mean, it's absolutely delightful, all these different the different creatures. So for example, let's talk a little bit. There is an illustration in the book of what the creature is called, a burden, and I thought that was such an interesting, clever creature. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with some of these. There's the worm that's like a rat-like creature. There's the hydrids. How did you come up with some of these sci-fi elements?
Well, and that was part of the fun of the book, is creating that mythology and giving a setting and a place that was so complete that the reader, was immersed in it, and creatures like the burden, and the worm, which is, basically short for vermin.
Sure. Yeah.
It's all wordplay, and I totally drew that from Lewis Carroll and Through the Looking Glass, and even the world building as far as the belief system goes. I recently reread this with my daughter, but Watership Down. I mean, Richard Adams created a whole belief system for rabbits.
Right. Yes.
and Shakespeare and Neil Gaiman and a number of other influences that really helped me define this world in my head. The funny thing is that when I started writing the book, and Yvonne was going to do new illustrations for it, her original touchstones were anime, but also a real German woodcut pen and ink style. And that's what I thought was very appropriate for the book. Very much like, what's his name? The illustrator for Alice in Wonderland. I mean, just amazing stuff.
Yes, it does have a little bit of that look with
exactly.
Yes, with touches of the anime.
She got angry at me because she goes, "I don't do sci-fi. I don't trust spaceships. I do weird creatures. She's German, and so it's like, give me castles, give me." I said, "Draw what inspires you. You don't have to draw this other stuff." But then she got out of her comfort zone, and basically because David Bowie said, swim out to where you can't touch the bottom, and that's where you're going to be creative.
Oh, what an incredible story, too, because for her, as she's also an artist, I mean, we're in the arts. We're talking about acting, writing, illustration. It's all within the realm of the fine arts. And so for her to be willing to do that, it's, as the reader, getting to look at these beautiful visuals. I'm so thrilled that she went ahead and took that plunge to go outside of her norm to explore, because it's an incredible result, and it really serves the story so well. And she got to do a few castles in here too, which is a lot of fun to see the king and queen and the Allegra in her robes and just the beautiful castle type imagery that's also in there, which again, you labeled it so well, the sci-fi fantasy. It's a genre that's a little bit more niche, because you've got the hard sci-fi writers like Asimov and Niven and some of those classic storytellers. And then one of the authors that I've really fallen in love with from recent years is Jeffrey Carver's works. If you've never read him, he has a very similar niche of science fiction with that heavy fantasy involved. And I often think of Star Trek when I read his, because it's very much a group of people flung together. Some are alien. There's your main character who's kind of the human that you follow this character through all these journeys throughout the galaxies. And in many ways, that's what we're looking at here with the science fantasy, with the kingdoms, like you said, with the but there's also these wonderful sci-fi elements that are also pretty, standard sci-fi. You've got an android character that he encounters. You've got the little again, I'm trying not to give too much away, but you've got the little orb that follows him around that we won't get to how he even gets to some of these things, but those wonderful, and there's a big mystery element. So you've got mystery, you've got a little bit of romance, you've got fantasy. There are so many great threads in there. So there's a war going on. And there's the military sci-fi element, because yes, the main character is a soldier, and that's where we find him kind of in the midst of a lost battle that he barely managed to survive. And so he's kind of off in this distant world that is unfamiliar and trying to scrape his way back to somehow survive. And so you've got that military element to it as well. And I thought that part was very well done. Can you tell us a little bit about just your ideas with some of these spaceships where they've got the hexes that they're some of the military side of it?
Yeah, no. Once again, it's interesting because it's and even in Yvonne's illustrations, there's a big steampunk aspect to it. And I remember when Rhett Bruno, the publisher but also the editor of the first book, he said, "Lou, really? They use candles?" Yeah, and there's they have technology, right? I said, "Yeah, but come on, Yoda cooks over a fire in the same universe that the Death Star exists." Exactly. So, yes. Exactly. Yeah. And so there needed to be that difference between how far the Manolists had come technologically speaking, and how far the Endirans were. And that disparity is why they're still at war. And we see this on our own planet. I mean, once again, a lot of the themes are social commentary without trying to hit you over the head with it.
Yes, and I'm so glad you mentioned some of your inspirations of other authors, even somebody like David Bowie, different inspirations. Yeah. And would you, in the military sense, what would you say, how did you now you've taken on military roles as an actor, so coming at it from the writer perspective, did you have to do much research to imagine how do these soldiers, what's their rank and file, coming up with some of that logistical stuff?
Well, first of all, I come from a military family. I was a Navy brat. Mm-hmm. So that mindset is very much part of my upbringing. But then, once again, also being a reader, if I were going to point to any inspirations on the military side, certainly Shakespeare, and a lot of his battles, and even quite honestly, the Once and Future King. I played, I played King Arthur in the National Tour of Camelot, and here was, and then even when I played the King in The King and I,
on Broadway, right?
You have exactly, I was nominated for a Tony. Here you have, two leaders who are trying to create a world that's better for the next generation, for their sons, for their people. And war is never the answer. And so they are striving for peace and doing it from a compassionate and intellectual place. And that's what I wanted to imbue Everson, our hero, with. But also, him fighting against the tradition of his father, who is also a compassionate leader, but who has waged war. And the erstwhile villain of the piece, Xander the Firm, who is a mad king. Right. And the funny thing is I call him a mad king before Game of Thrones.
Yes, I can attest to that too. Yes. And it's not even the first, it's not that any of us came up with those things, those all the way back to Shakespeare.
Exactly.
There were mad kings that we saw in literature.
100%.
Yes. So, and it's wonderful that you have this incredible depth of experience to draw from with your acting, with your even writing screenplay, as you probably can tell us. It's quite different than writing a novel. And when you decided, okay, I'm gonna take my manager's advice, I'm gonna make this a novel, where was your mindset in terms of how to get an agent, a literary agent? Because I imagine your manager was in the realm of acting. So
Yes.
Tell us a little bit how you went about choosing Athon Books, who published your book, and your literary agent, who I want to give a huge thank you to, Penelope Burns, who connected us here to have this interview. And tell us a little bit about that process, which I imagine looks a little bit different in the acting world.
100%. And I think the thing that I love about this story is that it tells other writers that I didn't have it easy. Just because I'm famous in the acting world does not automatically mean my book is going to get published.
Sure. Yeah.
And so this is a very interesting journey in the respect that I was a few chapters in, and I was doing the series Longmire, and
yes.
Craig Johnson, we became very good friends. And I finally got brave enough to go, hey, Craig, I'm working on this novel off and on. Can I show you a couple of chapters and tell me what you think? And, am I wasting my time? And, he and his wife, Judy, read a few chapters and said, man, you got to finish this. And by the way, credit where credit is due. It was Craig's idea to magnetize the broadswords. And that proved to be such a wonderful plot device, not only in this book, but I'll tell you now, in the sequel.
We're going to talk more about that. Yeah. But I love that he and his wife encouraged you to, and were able to say to you, this book needs to be written, because sometimes it really is that person who's been there, done that, meaning he is the author of the Longmire series that you're getting input from and happens to be a friend. So for him, not just as a friend, but somebody with expertise of what you're trying to do.
So then what happened is that when I finished, his agent, who that's not her cup of tea, we submitted to a couple of places, and it was passed on. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I kind of put it away for a little bit, became friends with Chris Bojalian, author of, the Flight Attendant and The Witching Hour. I mean, tons and tons of best-selling books. He and I are doing some side projects together. But he read it, and he loved it. And he said, can I give this to my agent? And I went, please. And so he gives it to Deborah Gelman. And the funny thing is that Deborah had represented the first novel I ever wrote in college.
Oh,
and
my
that
goodness.
got a couple of dozen passes. I never followed up on it. But she liked my writing from a long time ago. And she gave this to Penelope, who understood the YA world a little better. And she led me to Athon Books.
That right there.
And by the way, I'm going back and I'm reworking the manuscripts from college because there's still something there. That's actually the third book I'm working on right now.
Oh my goodness! So that listeners who are aspiring authors, are writers who are passionate about their writing, I hope they are listening so closely to what you just shared with us, because you, who are a big, famous Hollywood star, where your book was passed on. That means, think of many people know the J.K. Rowling example, that Harry Potter was passed on some dozen times before it found its publisher. And look at where that book ended up. So, meaning just because someone passes on your book, it doesn't mean to give up right away. And thank goodness you didn't give up, that you kept going. You had that beautiful connection of somebody that said, hey, I might have an agent who would be interested in this, even though those other ones, it wasn't for them. And that's the thing about being in that sphere of traditional publishing as your book is, that there are people who are going to say, hey, this is a great book. It's just not something our company is publishing. Or this agent might say, this is not what I'm representing at the moment. I'm looking at a little more hard sci-fi, for example, than the fantasy elements you're including. And you do want the best agent for what you're doing in your niche. So how awesome that you found that through.
Well, it's fun. Craig, once again, in his inimitable Hemingway-esque style, said it very succinctly. He goes, "Don't worry, don't give up. It will eventually land on our desk."
That's right. That's right. And it did, and to beautiful result. And let's talk just a little bit about, I don't know how much you're able or wanting to share, but let's talk about that sequel. So I will tell you, I follow you on Twitter, and every once in a while I'll notice you will have people tagging your name that said, "Lou, where is the next book? I'm dying for your next book." And so I want to say it was just yesterday was the first time I saw you respond with, well, guess what? The book is coming. Like here's an estimated release date. So tell us a little bit about the sequel. When is it coming out? What you can and are able to tell us now about it?
First of all, I've released the title. It's The Tinderbox: Underground Movement. And very, very much like, the first book, there's a lot of wordplay there. So read into that what you will.
Sure. Oh, yes. I have all sorts of thoughts having read your first book.
Well, and by the way, they all apply. And it's so funny because I just to circle back to the hexes and the trauma. Once again, the manoliths drive traumas, which are troop augmentation machines,
Yes.
and our handheld explosives.
Right. Yes. You do.
All of that is.
You do such a great job of tying in acronyms, which to me, that's a very military thing. So, I mean, even the dogs are an acronym, and you learn what the tree actually means. And one of my favorite lines comes from Everson realizing what's happening with the tree. And so, I love the wordplay that you've done in the first book, so I can only imagine what's to come. So The Tinderbox Underground Movement is the sequel title.
Yes, and I finished all the edits on it. Kayleen Williams is a wonderful, wonderful editor. And so that portion is finished. Yvonne will start on the illustration soon. And we will.
I can't wait to see those.
We will look to see that sometime in spring of 24. Aethon Books will also be publishing it. Okay.
Oh, wonderful. So listeners, get your copy of The Tinderbox Soldier of Indira, because you're going to want to be ready for when the next book comes out in the spring. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that I see you post on Twitter. I'm going to share my own personal thing that I love that you share is about cats. So there's kind of a cliche, writers and their cats. Okay. So I know you have cats. Can you tell us a little bit about your fondness for cats and some of the things that you just enjoy about the feline nature, if you will?
Well, what's so funny is that, we have 5 half Maine Coons. We're pretty sure that they're half Maine Coon and Russian Blue.
So they're big cats.
They're big cats. Once again on Twitter, many people can see me covered in cats on the couch. We're very much in love with them. The funny thing is, Yvonne and I were never cat people.
Oh, interesting.
We were dog people.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And we in one of the houses we were renting, we started feeding a feral stray mama cat. Well, we didn't know she was a mama cat.
You learned that. The natural way.
And so one day I'm sitting there washing dishes, looking out the back window, and there's a gazebo out there, and all of a sudden, blink, 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 I see this little black fur ball come out, and I think, oh my God, it's a rat in the middle of the day. And then I look, and I go, oh no, it's a kitten.
Oh my goodness.
And so I literally am standing there wrestling with myself, thinking, okay, do I say something or do I not say something? Because and as I'm having this inner monologue, here comes the second one. Here comes the third one. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I know that there's no way I can keep this a secret. So I went, Yvonne, and she comes and she looks, and of course, it's like, oh my God! And she immediately goes on the internet to find out how to foster a kitten and make domesticate it and get it fixed and all that stuff. And the plan was to adopt them out.
Sure. Oh, yes.
We eventually discovered that there were 5 of them.
Uh-huh.
And the funny thing is, Yvonne's allergic to cats. And so there was no way we were ever going to keep them.
Oh.
And I don't know, the universe just fixed things, and she's not as allergic. But we're sure foster fails, and we kept all 5. And I have to say that our life has been infinitely blessed because of it, because they're fantastic.
Isn't that wonderful? Well, that's so interesting that you started out as dog people. So my husband and I have a dog and a cat, and we say they're brothers from another mother because they are just hilarious together. So do you only have cats, or do you also have
No, we have a dog. We have a dog who is infinitely patient. He actually gets along really well with a couple of them. They play. There are others that you're like, whatever, big dog. It's an ugly cat. We're not going to deal with him. But he was very, very good. We had the dog first, and he was very good about accepting the cats into the household.
Oh, well, wonderful. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun to see some of the fun things people tag you on. I think because you're possibly becoming a little bit known as the cat guy, on Twitter, where people will tag you and you'll repost some of the funnier, interesting cat videos or cat pictures or just cute cat things. And as Hemingway fans, for example, I don't know if you've been down to Key West, where Hemingway's home is to this day covered in cats. Have you ever made it down there?
I love that place. First of all, I adore Key West. I've been a few times. And I've been to the Hemingway house and seen the 6-toed cats. And
oh, yes.
I adore that place. I actually spent back in the early it was the late 80s. No, it was the early 90s. I'm getting old, Bria. I finished the screenplay to Dangerous Touch, one of the first films that I directed and wrote in Key West, and I felt like such a writer because I was in the same town Hemingway was.
Oh, absolutely. But, yes.
To have gone to that house, seen the cats, touched the desk, where we wrote Old Man in the Sea, just amazing. But now being a cat daddy and seeing that, Mark Twain and Hemingway and Neil Gaiman and, so many other authors were cat people. I mean, it's just, even Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes. Yes.
It's just wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. So we are in the studio here in Clearwater, Florida. So not too terribly far from Key West. And I've managed to make it down there a couple times and really enjoyed just seeing all those adorable cats and seeing where Hemingway wrote. Yes, there really is something almost magical about seeing the spot and his typewriter still there. And that actually brings me to a couple other questions that I had for you about technology. So thinking about science fiction and what we can tell in science fiction stories, and some of the ways that science fiction writers of the past have even given us warnings, if you will, for some of the technological advances that come maybe without the ethical questions being asked or even being acknowledged. So AI, of course, is a big topic in the writing world right now. Can you talk a little bit at all about your experience or your just some of any thoughts that you'd be willing to share about what's happening in the AI world, not only in the writing world, in the acting world, and what does AI, does it bring benefits? Does it bring dangers? What are your thoughts there?
I 100% understand why we are striking and support that wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. Because AI is a huge threat to the livelihoods of actors and writers. They're the people who would like to replace us with programs, and yet that is the very definition of formulaic.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're writing, and AI never would have come up with the tinderbox.
No, it wouldn't have.
It's too quirky. It's too weird.
Yes.
And you look at the performances that we love on the screen. They are inspirational. They come from this weird place of personality. And look at our movie stars. They're not bland. They're not middle of the road. They're not your De Niro's or your Walkens or your Streeps or your
Lou Diamond Phillips.
Thank you. They're unique and they're original, and you cannot program that. Responding to things in the moment.
And I 100% agree with that. There are some interesting discussions happening between, the people who talk about wanting to just plow ahead 180 miles per hour, and some that want to slow it down a little bit and see, like, well, what are the costs? What are the benefits? And one of the things that I've read a bunch of articles as a sci-fi writer myself, looking at what's happening currently, and the idea is, we're not at that place of Skynet, for example. What we currently have is not general artificial intelligence that's sentient. We have extremely advanced algorithms, and there is not a lot to be said about creativity with advanced algorithms. Kind of to your point that, for example, I imagine you have examples of being on a set and you're in the midst of your lines, and perhaps you or another actor starts ad-libbing. That's not something that would happen with an AI.
No.
Does that sound accurate to what you were trying to portray?
It's 100% 100% accurate. You have a fantastic script, first of all, that was written by a human, and that explores character and humanity and depth and these complex emotions. So an actor now takes that, and Ed Zwick had a wonderful phrase. Every person you hire, whether it's the actor, the editor, the cinematographer, they are there to plus that script. They will take inspiration from that script and they will add to it. And so things happen in the moment between two actors. Even if you just stick to the lines that, are physical, or that the one actor does something which causes the other actor to do something else. And that is the human interaction that happens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, you can go, okay, well, great, there's been great animation and all of that is plotted out, but you don't get that unless an Eddie Murphy is ad-libbing, at the mic.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You can't write all those jokes. You can't write all of those intonations that make Donkey special.
Right. And I'm not even sure that I've seen AI jokes. I wonder if that's something that people have even tried yet. I know with the Chat GPT and those types of narrative generating, I'm not sure how could they even write a joke, except that it would be kind of a repetition of somebody else's. I mean, there's a lot of just regurgitation, and that's essentially what's happening with some of these technologies is they're scraping from what's already out there. They're not coming from a place of human consciousness. So sometimes people can come up with ideas. Now, they do say there's no new ideas, quote unquote, but there are ways to tell stories that are infinite within, let's just say, those limits.
Aristotle said that there's only 5 stories.
Sure. Yep. And there's other.
And it's how you put them all together.
Right. Exactly. And to looking at your book, this is a story that people will want to read because you have given us a compelling story. You've given us your story craft is incredible. You have some incredible turns of phrase that I highlight all over because I'm like, even as a writer myself, I'm going, look at what he's done here. I mean, you have learned your craft. You may be a published author, like somebody can publish on Amazon without an agent, without an editor, and their work might unfortunately be missing a lot of the craft if they haven't honed it. Now, there are a lot of self-published indie authors that are incredible. They have honed their craft, and there is beautiful independent works out there, but it's so obvious that you have taken the time and that you're perfecting your craft and you're continuing to work on it. So it's so fantastic to hear you're continuing, that next story is coming, that you're working on these projects. And that as writers, I think one of the best things we can do is read in our genre.
Oh, 100%.
And it sounds like you are very well read.
I mean, and the other thing is, I really, just to your point, and to go back to Penelope Burns, she was my first beta reader.
Wow.
When it came to the first book and it came to my second book, and even as my agent, she made some beautiful observations that improved the book, both books. Mm-hmm. And then I will say, Red Bruno and Kayleen Williams have given me such beautiful notes and edits and whatnot, and even on a very technical level. Because, I mean, one of the first things that I noticed with other writers, I'm a screenplay writer and a director, one of the biggest problems with Soldier of Indira was head hopping. Because I was in my mind and go, ignore and cover, the foretellers. And so I would jump into their heads to get their thoughts and everything else. And yet it was very confusing and not linear and not readable, to be quite honest. And Rhett really pointed that out to me and said, okay, pick a point of view for this chapter. And everybody else can say what they say, but it really opened up things to me. And it was from a purely technical standpoint that I was directing it in my head like a film as opposed to writing it like a novel.
Sure. And drawing from all your experience, it's completely understandable why that would be your approach. But then having these wonderful editors and your agent and the publisher pulling together some of those, just like you said, those technical aspects of storycraft and storytelling, point of view is an incredible decision as a writer to make. Which point of view am I even going to tell? Like, whose point of view needs to be told here in this chapter? So it's so fascinating to hear you describe how, you were wanting to show everybody's point of view, but honing it in. I agree. I think, obviously I didn't read your previous draft, but reading the final draft, it is so well done. And the choices that you made for whose point of view we're in are so effective. And we just have a couple minutes left before we have to go to our break. But I couldn't talk to you without mentioning, I absolutely adore everything you do as an actor. The movies that I think of course, off the top are like La Bamba, Stand and Deliver, where you were nominated for the Golden Globe, Courage Under Fire. Now, I have Longmire. My husband and I just started it. We're a little behind the times, but we're starting it, and it's already very enjoyable to watch. You also we're in Stargate Universe. That's on my to watch list, of course, with a sci-fi, element there. So as an actor, what would you say were some of your favorite projects? Maybe even ones that people aren't as the big names that kind of pop up. Like La Bamba, of course, is very much, I think you're tied very much to that movie and that role. And when people think of you, they think of La Bamba. And there's go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I started in the theater and, did the classics, Shakespeare and Moliere and everything else, but also contemporary drama. But my first professional gig was doing sketch comedy in a punk club in Fort Worth in the early 80s.
That is incredible.
And if you look at my career, like you just mentioned 3 or 4 different things, and none of them are comparable to the others.
Right. Yes.
Henry Standing Bear is very different from Colonel Telford in Stargate universe. Richie is very different from Chavez and Young Guns. And I've always been different and attacking different genres. Comedy is a big thing for me. If it's a comedy, I'll almost say yes before I give you a script. Because it's, it goes back to how I cut my teeth. But I've just been so fortunate to do so many different things and not be known for one thing.
Oh,
like Prodigal Son, I adored that role. I wish it had gone so much longer. Two seasons of that, but every single one of the episodes are fantastic. I did a film recently called The 33 Chilean Miners with Antonio Banderas and Julia Binoche, most international cast I've ever worked with. And
fantastic
I
film,
underseen.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, beautiful film. And once again, very aspirational and very, like La Mamba, Stand and Deliver, very much about courage and the human spirit and faith and family. So very proud of that film. But there are a lot of gems out there that I've done that people continue to discover.
And it's such a pleasure to be able to see all the different avenues that you've managed to work through, from acting to, like you said, Broadway, which I'm sure is very different than being on the screen and in the writing craft and in behind the director's chair. So, Lou, it has been an absolute delight to talk to you, and I cannot wait for your next book. What we're going to do now, we're going to play the Science Fiction Book Buzz, which is the 2-minute review that I had the privilege of doing for the show about a year ago when I first read your book and did a 2-minute review. So we're going to play that, and then we'll be on our commercial break to the end of the show. So, Lou, it has been such a pleasure. I'm so thrilled that you were willing to come on the show and talk to us about your book, about your journey as a writer. Thank you so much for your time and for just all that you've brought to the world as an artist, and just the last thing you shared, your courage, your incredible inspiration that you bring to the world. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Bria. I really, really appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk about this.
Thank you, Lou, and take care and keep writing.
All right. I am indeed.
Okay, we're going to go to our science fiction book buzz of The Tinderbox, Soldier of Indira.
Hello, fellow sci-fi readers. This is author Bria Burton reporting for Joy on Paper with your science fiction book buzz. Today's communique to galaxies near and far includes a 2020 debut by actor Lou Diamond Phillips, The Tinderbox, Soldier of Indira. This standalone young adult novel is available in print, ebook, and audiobook. Now, let's download the book buzz. A great war rages between the invading Indirans and the monoliths, two races divided by the Grand Schism, a cataclysmic event that tore their once shared planet in two. An Indiran soldier named Everson barely escapes as the rest of his compatriots perish, and Mono claims a battle victory. Everson's identity as the Prince of Indira remains a secret as he is conscripted to retrieve a mysterious tinderbox. The seers have prophesied the downfall of their mad king when the princess weds a soldier at the rise of the Aurora constellation. The king of Mono believes the tinderbox will ensure his unimpeded reign, along with permanently imprisoning his daughter. When Everson succeeds in finding the tinderbox, he flees, aided by its high-tech and supernatural properties. Everson's journey leads him to a poor community of farmers where he recognizes how the Mad King's reign has oppressed the people. The tinderbox offers him a portal to the princess where their brief encounter heralds the start of the prophesied events. Everson will do whatever it takes to rescue the princess and restore peace, and the Mad King will move heaven and earth to stop him. Equal parts military science fiction and space opera, this genre-bending tale weaves a clever and twisty web of court intrigue paired with high-tech ingenuity and layered with echoes of Shakespearean drama. Author and actor Lou Diamond Phillips is best known for roles in television and films such as Longmire, Stargate Universe, and La Bamba. His debut novel began as an idea from his wife, Yvonne. Her artwork is embedded throughout the novel. This is Bria Burton with your futuristic fiction fix, signing off.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Have you ever faced disaster? The Red Cross is always there for you. The Red Cross responds to a call for help every 8 seconds. They have never turned anyone down. Now they need your financial support so that they can be ready to help you when the need arises. Donate online at redcross.org. Thank you.
Are you an author, an artist, an inventor? Then you need to protect your valuable intellectual property. You need Larson & Larson. We have the experience and knowledge to help you with all of your legal needs, from processing trademark, copyright, or patent applications to negotiating licensing agreements and handling litigation. The attorneys at Larson & Larson in Largo, Florida can help protect you. Call us today for a no-cost consultation at 727-546-0660 or visit our website at larsonpatentlaw.com.
Do you dread being called on to speak at meetings or family functions? Have you envied those who can sway an audience with well-chosen words? Do you know that people who speak well earn more money, earn more recording careers? Gain the confidence to master any speaking situation. Toastmasters will allow you to find your voice. Go to toastmasters.org to locate the club nearest you.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Hi, and welcome back to Joy on Paper. We have just had an incredible interview with author and actor Lou Diamond Phillips. He was able to tell us the story behind his book, The Tinderbox, Soldier of Indira. And he also made a beautiful announcement that I have been longing for. The sequel is coming in the spring of 2024, The Tinderbox, Underground Movement. So for those who have not yet gotten their hands on the book, you are going to want to get it as soon as possible so that you're ready for the sequel, which comes out in the spring. So I just want to thank, first of all, I am Bria Burton, guest host here, and I typically do 2-minute book reviews of science fiction books. So you'll hear my voice every once in a while during Joy on Paper when your regular host, Patsy, is interviewing authors and writers and anybody pretty much related to writing. And she'll occasionally play my 2-minute sci-fi book buzz, which will share a book that I've read and loved and would love to share with you. So everybody just got to hear the book buzz that I did for Lou Diamond Phillips' book, The Tinderbox. And if you're looking for where to find Lou online, there is a couple places. He's on Twitter. He has a Twitter handle, and there is an official Lou Diamond Phillips Twitter handle that you can find and follow him. You'll know it's him because there are a lot of cat photos. It's wonderful. And he is very interactive with fans. So get on Twitter. I believe they've changed the name to X, so forgive me. I'm getting used to calling it X. And he's also on IMDb, where you can find his incredible catalog of films that you absolutely have got to see and television series. So if you're looking for something great to read, pick up The Tinderbox, and I know you're going to absolutely love it. So again, my name is Bria Burton. You can find me at briaburton.com. I'm also on Twitter, now known as X. I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram. So thank you for joining us for this very special Joy on Paper, and I do hope you'll tune in on Thursday. This show is every Tuesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern. Patsy, our delightful host, talks to people in the writing world, whether they're brand new authors, people who dream of writing, and the listener is always that person who wants to know the story behind the book. So be sure to tune in every week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern. And thank you again for listening to this incredible interview with Lou Diamond Phillips. And I'll talk to you all again another time. I hope to be back guest hosting in the future. You all have a lovely day and get out there and write.